Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our 25th Charter Commission meeting. 25th. Wow. This is our 25th meeting. Wow. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So I call the meeting to order, and if we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and words of inspiration, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We ask blessings on the people who've been called to lead the community in which we live and work and play. Keep in mind, because we all forget from time to time, that we're not only leaders, but also servants, and it's our responsibility to serve the common good of all. Grant us the wisdom and the courage to know and do what is right and good and true. May we speak out when it is time to speak out, and listen patiently and receptively when it is time to listen. May we always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice, and the spirit of love. This we strive for in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy, all that we hold good and right and true. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, David. Okay, before we go to roll call, Wayne, would you mind being our
No, I saw this.
clerk? Yeah, okay. So I make a motion that Wayne is our clerk for today.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Hey.
Okay, so roll call, please.
Bolin.
Here.
Dwyer.
Here.
Hanson Maynard. Irwin. Marucci. Here. Nazary.
Here.
O'Neill. Here. Parker.
Here.
Slowinski.
Here. Thank you. Okay. Public comment for items on the agenda. And new business. The first thing is approved minutes from the November 22nd meeting. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approve the invoices and add them to the shared doc Excel file. I try to do that before we get here. And there were a couple of them that weren't ours, but I mentioned to August, and they're going to send them to the correct people. And then there's only one of them that I saw, I didn't see in the packet today, and it's invoice 2468. It was for Merge Live for the date of November 8th. And I sent a message to August to see if maybe, I'm hoping they didn't miss it, but it looks like it's overdue. So hopefully they can get that resolved. But that's added to the chart. And then we have invoice number 13549, for December 1st, and this is for our attorney, for the amount of $2220. We need a motion to
I motion to approve that.
Anybody have any questions?
We're only doing the two, or November 8th is just an inquiry?
November 8th was just in the, yeah, usually we don't
Right.
talk about the Merge Live, but it was just kind of like a note to go over that. We had those two we're looking into. This is the only one that we have.
I second her motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, next on our agenda is current business. We'll head right over to the attorney report. Thank you for being here again, John.
My pleasure.
We appreciate it. You did a lot of work for us this time. And we sent your documents to everybody, I believe it was on the 4th, to give them a lot of time to take a look at it. And does anybody have any questions? And do we want to start going over some of the changes?
Yeah, I mean, for the first round, it looked good to me. I didn't really have anything that came up.
What I tried to do as well, we talked last time, so I've given you two versions, and the first one was the necessary changes. Version 1 was necessary changes corresponding to the outline I had provided in October. And then the second version includes the necessary changes, and at least I tried to do them in different colors, red in mine and blue in the others, but I don't know how they turned out on everybody else's computer. But just some of the cleanup things, the low-hanging fruit things, the gender neutrality, that sort of thing. But the other thing that I was wanting to key on and solicit your feedback on was I took a shot at some very initial, very brief margin notes, balloon notes, and so on in anticipation, as we've talked about several times, as we go along and as we get ready to roll this out to the public. We discussed that we'll lose the public, or we'll never embrace them to begin with if we just say, here's 30 pages or 50 pages, read it, understand it, but rather we're going to have to hit them with some succinct, easy to understand talking points. And so that was my attempt, as well as to explain it to you folks, but also giving us something to start with that we can build on as we start putting those talking points together. I wanted my margin notes here to kind of be a starting point for that, to kick it off. So I just wanted to explain that. I interrupted Ms. Parker.
No, you're perfectly fine. Like, I appreciate the use of the margin notes. I don't have as many. I don't really think I have immediate questions for right now, because I know we all discussed really just honing in on what the needed changes were, and we're going to discuss further. So what you gave us, that's exactly what I asked for, so I appreciate it.
So I dealt with this like I dealt with our existing charter. I mean, I went through it line by line and saw some things, and it's like I got some questions. So I got through page like 28 or 30 or something like that. But I don't have questions on every page, but I do have some questions. So I want to know. I'm not here all the time from people. I just don't know if others did the same thing, or I guess I was not prepared to say, yeah, I really like this. Let's go. Because I thought I caught some errors in terms of words that were in that shouldn't have been, or words that were missing that shouldn't have been. But also some, I'll call really sensitive questions or serious questions about, like, the mayor's term. I don't know if we surely didn't discuss it with you, but you left it inappropriately as it exists. It's 2 years. That's one that jumps at me. But I wrote a bunch of other ones, and I don't know how you want to start.
Yeah, I think that's because we haven't made motions to change those.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
But I understand what you're saying.
You see, I guess I don't know if I jumped ahead and I shouldn't have, but it just saves me time now in the future. But they're just things that, some changes were made, I think. Like, is the blue, did I understand the blue be changes?
The blue are changes, and those were primarily cleanup items as opposed to policy changes.
Okay.
And also, as I said, wherever I saw references to he and him, I tried to insert gender neutral terms.
Yeah, that's
or just instead of saying, when we're in the city manager section, instead of saying he, I would just say the city manager.
It's sort of tough to do sometimes, isn't it?
Well, it is. Sometimes changing a he or a her takes 3 or 4 or 5 words.
Exactly. Yeah, it's tough to do. It's a very
without rewriting the whole paragraph. So.
Absolutely.
John, I'm curious, for example, like the very first page, on limitation, which is section 301, right in the title, is that you blocking limitation refers to the paragraph on the side? not as an elimination.
Yeah, I
correct?
did not do that. The computer did that.
Oh.
I mean, my.
That's why some of them
Yeah,
didn't make
I mean,
sense to me.
You have to ask Donald.
the balloon note is mine.
Right,
The
okay.
computer decided to highlight limitation for some.
Okay, because that's why it's like, well, I
I
thought
didn't know
they,
how to undo that
you know
without
what?
eliminating
Listen,
the
I
balloon.
suffer the same thing.
Apologize for my.
No need to.
I'm pushing the envelope, the edge of the envelope on my computer screen.
John, there's no need to apologize. The computer has a mind of its own. Mine works the same way.
Yeah, they really do have the mind of their own.
Yeah, I was looking for the blue changes that you're talking about. And
They
I see-
don't start for a couple of pages. Yeah.
They're kind of intermingled.
Yeah, and there's not as many, there's more red changes than blue changes.
So one that I have right, excuse me, can I ask another question? Madam Chairperson?
Absolutely.
So, for example, at page 5 of 52, the second line from the bottom says, "All votes shall be yeas and nays." That's a change that you made, right?
Yeah, I made that change, you didn't direct me to, but I just thought,
I'm
you
not
know, who says yay or nay anymore? You say, you know, yes or no.
So, but my question was, then how do we vote now? By raising our hands?
Well,
or-
I mean,
That's what we have to
we
decide.
could insert yes or no, but
Got
I
it.
just thought, well, maybe we don't need to say anything, or you can just say, oh, votes shall be, you know, well, whatever, I mean, we can say whatever.
Ayes
we
and,
want, but
aye.
Yeas and nays seem
Yes and
very
no.
antiquated.
Yeah,
I
okay.
appreciate your enthusiasm, Joe.
I got
But we
this
can
one.
change it, modernize it to yes or no.
Understand. Like I said, I think I jumped to probably maybe the next meeting.
Does anybody who have a printed copy see the blue?
Do you not see it in your?
Because
I see it.
what page?
I see it too.
5 of 52.
I got a lot of blue in mine.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
Yeah, so that's what I was afraid of. I think it's a function of how your
Yes.
computer is set up as to
Yeah.
what colors it will show.
Unless I'm,
Like it's kind of, it's intermingled.
Are you,
so the-
which one are you looking at?
No,
Version
I-
1 or version 2? Because version 2 shows
I was
the blue.
looking at
I got
the
two.
necessary
Yeah, version
changes
two.
only.
Okay, version
And-
1 is only red. Version 2
Version two.
has red
Okay.
and blue.
That's why, gotcha, now I'm on the same page.
I
Okay.
just skipped it.
I'm curious, with residency, is that 25 miles?
As a crow flies.
Right.
I think
You
so,
go to the
yes.
4 corners or 5 corners and,
Exactly.
okay, so do we want to talk about, like, again, I guess I'm jumping ahead. I need to shut up.
No, that's what this.
No, my only thought was, residency per se is such as, you gotta live within this 2.4 square miles has been eliminated as of about 21 years ago. But there still is a residency requirement, which I believe is 25 miles from the furthest point of the city as the crow flies. So do we still want to have residency for the city manager in compliance with the state law?
Is that just for the city manager or for all employees?
At this point, this paragraph only deals with the city manager.
Right.
Let me just throw out some food for thought. I think initially residency requirements, and you still absolutely have residency requirements for your elected officials. But I think it was initially, part of it is just to have the community pride thing going. If you live here, you're gonna
Right, you're vested.
theoretically have more pride in your country.
Yeah.
And certainly it was understandable for your emergency services people, your police, your fire, maybe your DPW people, because you wanted them to be able to
Right.
respond like that in the event of an emergency. But then even beyond that, it was like, well, even if you're not necessarily an essential worker or public safety, where we need you here immediately, we still want, like, our city manager, we don't want every time we need him, it's like, oh, I'm out
100
in,
miles.
out in
Yeah.
Howell or something like that, it's gonna take me an
Yeah.
hour
Kingsville.
to get in. All I'm gonna say, just as food for thought, though, is we all know, and as we've all learned, even more than maybe we knew before, since the pandemic started, is actually able to accomplish a lot more remotely than we ever knew we could. So I just throw that out there.
I agree.
When you're thinking
I
about
agree.
residency requirements, they sound good, but do they still have the same, necessity or serve the same purpose as maybe they originally did when they were incorporated in the charter.
I would like to add to that, though, just because we thought while we're talking about it, we can talk about it later, but I have to go to the other end of the spectrum where I feel that there can be a sense of disconnect if you're too far out. I kind of know, festivities or happenings in Clawson and Royal Oak and Troy, being here. I don't know what's going on in Clarkston. I don't know what's going on in Livonia. You know what I mean? So I think if we, I understand that you can accomplish more being further out, but I do think we have to consider that you still want somebody who is comfortable with the happenings of, the area and what's going on in Clawson. I just don't want to see too much of a disconnect.
I would just throw out one other thing. That makes a lot of sense. That also goes to the point that I forgot to make, but I'll make it right now and I'll shut up. Is just the job market being what it is, and as more and more positions in municipal government become professionalized, you want people, your money handling people and so on, you want them to actually, know what they're doing and not just somebody who just happens to be a resident. Now, I'm a quick learner, that kind of thing, and just the job market being what it is. I think that's another fact you have to consider. Like, for instance, with a city manager or whatever, it's like, boy, if you have to find one that lives, closely, or you got a real gem, but he's like really happy where he lives in Ann Arbor, or she lives in Ann Arbor, or whatever, and really isn't interested in moving. Those are things you have to take into consideration too. Because, yeah, you don't want that disconnect, but you also have to be careful about reducing your options to bring in, key people or real qualified people.
I get that too. There's got to be something we need to figure out.
I just finished an interim gig in Village of Lake Orion, and they brought a guy back that used to work there. He has an hour and 25-minute ride. Now, that's his problem. And just like John said, if you give me this, I don't have to come to work. I don't lift stuff. I just directly, and I have FaceTime, I can see him. I mean, with the power that you have now.
You can have Zoom meetings and all that.
I mean,
Yeah.
You know how to FaceTime?
just barely.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, my daughter, she does it all the time, so.
Same thing, my son taught me how to do that.
So what is it now? Is it 25 miles from the
As a crow flies, but
Borders.
nobody enforces that.
north, south, east, west?
Yeah, you go to, it's not from the city hall or from the center of town, you can go to any.
From the edge.
From the
Yeah,
edge.
call from the four corners.
That's a pretty good.
And
That's
it's
a pretty good.
Yeah, it's a radius. It's not following the rules.
I mean,
I think our guy now, the we have now, that he's within that, I believe.
I have no.
This is Mount Clemens.
I think he's in Mount Clemens.
Yeah.
I drove to Emily
Is it
City
Mount
for
Clemens?
3.5 years.
No, he was in Mount Clemens.
Took me 50 minutes, 5 whole minutes.
How many
Because
miles?
he goes to Sulphur.
It's 50 miles.
Wow.
So I got a couple other questions. On page 7, 52, the point of officers, the fourth line down, any reason why the, in terms of fire department, is in parentheses? So it's fourth line down, it says council appointed chief of police and the chief.
Yeah, I mean, the parentheses should probably be eliminated. That's actually an insertion by the codification company. I didn't put that in, but
I know you didn't put it
I think
in.
that word had been omitted,
Got
and
it.
it probably should
Understood.
be there.
And then, if you go down a couple more lines, it says, it reads left to right, otherwise provided in this chapter, all appointees of the council shall hold office during the pleasure of the council. Shouldn't it be at the pleasure of the council?
At the pleasure of the council or at the will of the council?
Right, not during the pleasure of.
Yeah, that went entirely different. But at the pleasure of the council or at the will of the council,
Right.
it does have some legal significance, and that would be better terminology.
We don't want to be the Washington Redskins, do we? Dan?
It could be. but
Yeah. Going on to section 415 about city clerk. I know you've taken out, well, most of it. There is fourth line from the bottom, his still exists in it.
Okay.
And then the next one says, the clerk may charge therefore such fees as prescribed by council. Shouldn't it be such fees as prescribed by the Freedom of Information Act?
This is for,
Oh, it's the same thing, I'm sorry. If you go down,
oh, I see what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah, I think you're right. It used to be that communities had far more latitude.
Oh,
and
yeah.
now we're pretty much told,
Yep.
under the Freedom of Information Act, this is what you're going to charge and not
exactly.
a
Oh,
penny
okay.
more. So that's a very good catch, Mr. Marucci, and I think you're right. Rather than as prescribed by the council, the reference should be made as, as
Yeah, you know the
prescribed
language.
by or as limited by by FOIA.
And then if you go on, I'm sorry if I'm boring, I really don't, but I actually did read this.
No, that's good, Joe, because we can get it on record.
So if you go on page 9 of 52, paragraph 419 regarding the board of review. So, out 1, 2, 3, the third line from the bottom reads, a registered elector of the city and must be a property taxpayer of the city. So if I'm a renter, and I know 17% of my rent could be counted towards property tax, if I'm a renter, am I considered a property taxpayer?
You would be. And this language, by the way, is taken straight out of the state law, straight out of the General
Okay,
Property
that-
Tax Act.
that I didn't
And that-
know.
Yeah, and that's what they mean. So the answer is, yes, a renter could.
Because indirectly it does pay. So here's my other example. I don't like to work for a living, and I haven't gone to school, so I live with my parents, and I'm 25 years old, right? Do I have the right to vote?
Yeah.
Why? Says I'm
Because
not,
I'm 25 and I was living at home with my parents.
But yeah, right to vote. Now, this is talking about border review.
I'm sorry, go for board of review, yeah. Do I have can I go on the board of review, my fault?
I mean, according to this, no.
Yeah, you
You
can.
didn't mean what you're thinking.
Oh,
Board of
like
review.
you're not saying I can't vote, right? You don't think I
No, no, I'm not.
No, you
I'm not-
could vote, but you
I
couldn't.
got,
You
you
couldn't.
can't sit on the
Yeah,
board
we
of
are ready
review.
to
That's what
fight,
I meant.
I'm like,
That's what I meant. So I can't go on the board of review.
Correct.
Okay, and that, the state law.
And that's state law.
Understood. I didn't know that it did.
What section was that in, Joe?
419,
4.19 on page 9.
and it's the third line
Right in
from
the
the
middle.
bottom.
Got it. Yeah.
You know, it is interesting. That is in the state law, which is why I put it there.
I understand. I did not realize it was in the state law.
It would be interesting, and I'll keep this real short, it would be interesting if someone who really wanted to be on the board of review badly challenged that, because it used to be fairly commonplace several decades ago to have requirements that in order to be an elector,
Yep.
you had to be of age,
Mhm.
a registered elector, and you had to be a property owner.
That's right.
And to say that to be on the board of review, one must be a property taxpayer, not really that far removed from those kind of requirements that were
Right.
held unconstitutional a long time ago. I just don't think it's ever been raised because there's never really a lot of glamour to get on the board of review. It's
No.
not a real glamour job. And,
Right.
but anyway, just that it's an interesting point that you raised, Joe.
The nepotism provision on 426.
Over 26.
Yes, 4.26, excuse me, 4.26, page 11 of 52. Is that a, I had to look it up again because I couldn't remember what second degree of consanguinity is. So second degree of consanguinity is, see, first degree is parent, grandparent, child, or sibling, and then second degree is your grandchildren.
I think so.
Aunts and
I have a
uncles.
chart back.
I had to
in the
look it up.
office Because I thought,
Yeah.
this hurts my brain to try to remember
Mine
that.
too.
It's the next generation, bro.
It's the next generation.
It is,
It's the one, so this one says, if you're two or within, so you can't work, we can't appoint someone, or they can't appoint someone who's an aunt, an uncle, a niece, a nephew, cousin, I think is third degree. Is that how when you say within, it's first, it includes first and second?
That's correct.
Got it.
4.28, there's a couple of keys in there.
Yes, I saw the same
Saw
thing.
that.
2 E's.
Yep.
Yeah. There's so many. So I have a question, and I can think of 2 examples, one which I saw personally and one which I heard of. And that's regarding elective officers, holding additional offices and things like that. It says here that you can't be appointed to an officer of the city, which I would, DPW director, maybe police chief, maybe city manager, and some other things, unless you've been off of the council for a year. So is a year enough? Because I think there's a provision, I made this up, 408 says 2 years.
That's for the city manager, right?
Right. So do we want to have the same provision? And I think 2 years is a good provision, because the 2 situations I'm familiar with, St. Clair Shores, 15, 20 years ago, the mayor needed a job, so his buddies on the council allowed him to step down and named him DPW director. I mean, like the next meeting, or maybe at the same meeting. It's like, oh, that sort of smells.
Right.
In one of the cities I worked in, one of the council members needed a job, and there was a vacancy, the human resources person, they allowed him to resign from the council, and they appointed him on the human resources.
Yeah.
I think that smells.
I think it's a good provision to have, and I can tell you from my travels, I don't see this in a lot of charters.
I agree.
And I'm kind of surprised, because I have seen the kind of things that you're talking about, Joe, where, you know, council members or township trustees or whatever, they kind of create golden parachutes for themselves that, you know, I'll resign or I'm term limited, but, you know.
After they've done a few favors for.
And then they end up
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
a nice job. And maybe they're perfectly qualified people and all, but the optics are really bad.
Right.
So I think it's a good thing to have, but I also, as I sit here, I don't know why it would be like 2 years with regard to the city manager, but 1 year for the others. I can't think of a good reason why it shouldn't be the same, either 2 years or 1 year,
Right.
you know, regardless of the position.
I like 2 years, because I really don't, I don't think it's ever happened here. Wayne, you probably know, and John, with all the people you work with in different areas, it can really smell in some place. And I guess I really don't care what Madison Heights does, but I sure do care what Clausen does.
Yeah.
So is there,
And maybe this is...
it might be a bigger issue.
It's a bigger issue, I think so.
But just something
It's
that-
something I guess I want to bring to everyone's attention in my reading of it.
No, I thank you that you put this much
Yeah.
at a time. I mean, I read through it, but I didn't
Yeah.
like think at it yet. I was like.
And I think I jumped one meeting ahead.
Yeah,
too.
and
No,
just
I
the
think
thought
it's
would be,
great
I
that
mean,
you
maybe
can-
we can take it up when we get to that.
Exactly.
Step of the next
Yeah.
meeting.
That's all I-
That's kind of where I
And think
was.
about, should it be, you know, 2 years, 1 year, no limitation, a greater limitation?
Yeah,
you know,
you're
what should
right,
it
there's
be?
many choices. What is defalcation mean? I didn't look that
It's
one
a
up.
$5 word.
And I can't even pronounce it.
Where I remember.
I'm sorry, 434, defaulters not qualified from office. It's the very first line, no person who has been convicted of defalcation. I think I got it right, defalcation. 434.
Well, default, it's a fancy way to say defaulted.
No, but because 4 words past, it says default.
It's a, yeah, I mean, it's
Same thing?
it's just another word of saying that basically you're.
Like
in-
fraud, right?
Yeah, it's like money
Well, it's
laundering.
not necessarily as far as fraud, but it's basically you're indebted to the city.
Owing, not paying something.
Either in terms of taxes, or you haven't paid an assessment, or you haven't paid a bill, or.
A ticket, could be many things.
It could be many different things.
It says
It's-
convicted.
There's probably, you know, I didn't change it as far as cleanup, but that certainly is something that maybe,
John?
you know, I strive, even in writing my legal briefs and so on, I try to use plain English. as much as possible, but if that's not a legalese term, I don't know what is, and we can probably come up with a better word than defaultification so that charter commissioners don't have to look it up in the dictionary.
I did look up consanguinity. I'm sorry I didn't go to the next step. I'm sorry for
It's
boring.
like reading Shakespeare. There's always an easier way to say what to say.
Good example.
Defaultification is one of those words you use when you're trying to
I think-
show somebody you're the smartest person in the room, right? Otherwise, it's...
Yeah, you're right.
Why would you say that?
Yes. You know what, I think most of the other ones, I guess I didn't have any problems either with, like, is it catching a his?
Yeah,
Where,
yeah, and if anybody else saw it, I apologize, but, you know, there may be some other instances. I'll have to run another word search, but, you know, if anybody else noticed any other areas where I didn't replace male terminology with gender-neutral terminology, I'll make those changes.
So I am curious, on posting a bond, until you get to the very last section, it almost reads as if someone gets appointed, then it's their job to go out and get a bond at their cost. And I know at the very conclusion of the bond section for clerk and treasurer it talks about, does it seem like we should wait that long, or is the wording typical, do you believe?
I think it is fairly typical,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean it can't be written better.
Because I wrote it down, and like I got to the very end of the requirement and said, but the city shall pay for the bond. I'm like, it's like a weird
What
place.
section are you on?
Let me go back.
It's farther back in the...
Yeah,
Oh,
and it's for the clerk and the treasurer in terms of they shall post bond in the amount deemed appropriate by the city council and so
got
forth.
it. Oh, I got it.
And I'm going to stop monopolizing the time.
Oh, I think
No, these
Those
are all-
those are all very good comments.
And I'll finish the rest for the next week.
you're making me feel like I didn't do my work. Like I read it.
And it makes me feel that I didn't read the agenda to make sure what I should have done was not jump ahead.
You're the valedictorian today, I get it.
There is nothing wrong with being overly prepared.
Yeah, not at all. We're gonna talk about it at some point.
So by next meeting, we can now do what Joe did, take a look at it and
Yeah, I mean, like, we did say this is gonna be our time to go ahead and if we did see something separately, like, we could go ahead and hone in on that, something specific someone sees that they thought was different, or should be changed, or we decided we need an extra. Or that's that big rocks list that we came up with that
Right.
we have to,
And I did try to make clarifying changes as you go through this, if you feel that, and I didn't try to, because, you know, I could go bonkers on this and, you know, rewrite the whole thing to reflect John Starren's personal, you know, writing style, whatever. I was trying not to do that. But if, as commissioners go through this more carefully, if you believe that there is some phraseology that could and should be much better worded, or if it's susceptible to multiple interpretations, whatever, those are definitely the kind of things we want to tackle, aside from the big rock items. Well, we want to make sure we end up with something that's clear, that hopefully anybody reading it can, you know, walk away with the same interpretation of it. That's, you know, we don't want to create an ambiguous document.
So that being said, like I noticed a couple of times in here with the gender neutrality, it says like the person. Did we make the decision to do that? How we want to use the gender verbiage? Are we going to do like he, she, they? Just he, she?
I don't think we talked about that, we touched on it a little bit when we first talked about it, but we really didn't make any decisions.
person to persons.
I have had people tell me, and I don't know, because I'm not I should talk to a school teacher, perhaps. Do we have any on the commission here? But I used to always say, when I tried to be gender neutral, I would say he or she. And I was told that really is not appropriate.
Yeah, now
We
it's
should
like
use a
he, she,
completely
they.
gender term, like refer to the
Just say
person
them.
or the position and not the
Just
not the
for- yeah.
pronouns.
You would just refer to
Yeah.
them as they, them. So when you guys use it, just say person, persons.
I like what he did. I like what you did. Use it there.
Or I can do it however you want, but
Right.
just explain that's
I
why
think
we
the position,
did it that way.
Well, it's like here in 516, just one I pulled up. No person who has been removed from the city by recall or who has resigned from the office while recall proceedings are pending against the person. Like, does it sound too, generic or not? Like, I feel like there's a loss of humanity there almost.
What if you changed it to individual? Because I thought
Oh,
the same
yeah,
thing.
against the
I caught
individual.
the same thing. It's like person sounds like this amorphous.
Yeah. it's
The
like-
only reason, and I get that, it could be individual, I was just trying to be consistent with the...
Oh, no, absolutely.
With the, the beginning of that sentence, where it says, no person who has been removed, so,
Understood.
the next reference, I just stayed with the word person.
Anything I've ever written where they've used they is always, it's just so jarring, as in, no, they are being removed. Those
People
things-
did not like it.
No.
I have a hard time using they even when somebody wants to be referred to that way because I feel like I'm like talking to them like they're in the corner, like
Yeah.
Exactly,
they,
not in the room.
and,
Yeah.
and I mean I try
Those guys,
to obviously
they-
want to be respectful of it, but it's hard for me to get used to even. But I just want it to still sound like we're talking about a person. I don't want to take that away. And maybe it's just that sentence to me that stood out. We can see how it goes. If we need to change it here and there, just to make it sound right.
Yeah, we might need to get more of like an expert in getting us ideas on what sounds best. Okay. Anything else that we want to talk about?
Look at what Stacy has.
And if anybody, while you're going through this or after the meeting, if you're gonna go through it more thoroughly, if anybody else finds any pointers or things I missed or whatever, I mean, feel free to, send me an email or send it through Laura or whatever, or send me the pages or whatever, so that when we come back next time, hopefully, that we've taken care of as much as we can as far as the cleanup goes, so that we can
Absolutely.
tackle bigger issues.
What's your email address, please?
JSTARAN@hsc-law.com.
Perfect.
So I did have a technical question. It's just like, I just remembered that I was thinking this. When we're removing sections, like, we're removing a couple sections in section 7, 7.4, and 7.5. So since we're doing a revision, is it appropriate then for us to move 7.06 up to 7.04?
Yeah, the numbering will change.
Okay.
I just didn't do it at this point. I figured,
yeah.
once
Yeah.
the commission decides, okay, we're good with that, let's move on to the next step, that's when we'll do all the renumbering and
I just didn't
and
know
so
if,
on.
like-
I just didn't want to be premature with that, because it'd
Yeah.
be confusing as though we're referring to these things. You're talking about section 704, which right now is 706.
Yeah.
and-
I didn't know if
Right.
704 kept its existence because it was there at one point.
No.
So if it was referred to as something in the past. we had to
Not with
keep
a
it.
revision. Now, if we
Okay.
were just doing charter amendments, then
Yes,
we
okay.
wouldn't want to change the numbering. We'd just have some kind of editor's note in there. But we're rewriting this. This is going to be a brand new product, and we're going to want the numbers to be in proper order and sequence.
Perfect.
We can altogether. If you don't like it this way, we can do Roman numerals, we can do letters, whatever you want.
I have a question. It's not really like a substance question, but more of like just a general knowledge.
Sure.
Is there like a writing plan that has to go? I know that like things have to be written a specific kind of way, but is like writing this like a paper? Does it have to be in Times New Roman?
Does it have to be
Like, does it have to be like in Times or Papyrus or, you know what I'm saying? Like this, it has to.
No, I understand your question.
Like AP format.
Does it have, you know what I'm saying? Like just curiosity.
No, there's no particular requirement for the, the style, the fonts, the format, anything like
I
that.
have this one, the sample one that we had here.
The
And
only
it
requirement's
has a
gonna be in the
different
English
vibe.
language.
I was just curious. It's just a question I've had nagging on my mind since I've had it.
Comic Sans.
I hate it.
I don't know, if we want to make this for the next 20, 25 years, maybe we should be doing it in emojis, I don't know.
Right?
I'll need to talk to some elementary kids to help me out with that.
I think it'd make it a way lot more fun to read.
Right.
Then people maybe would read it, right?
So, I know we're talking about keeping our revised copies. Is our next step then to say, okay, now we make another copy where all of the removals, everything that needs removed are wiped out? Now we're reading it without those areas. Instead of reworking over the red, we're keeping this copy. We've decided we're keeping the version of every revision. So now is our next step in revision saying, okay, we have this copy now, everything, everything's striped out that we want to remove. Now we actually remove that, so we're reading a copy that doesn't have all that in it. You know what I'm saying? Am I making sense?
Well, our next step is to approve the changes when we're ready to do that. But yeah, then we'll go through and,
It could be that way, but then you'd be going the next step. We kind of started with the low-hanging fruit. Let's make the changes we know we need to make. Then let's make the cleanup changes.
Which would be elimination
and
of.
get that stuff. So that'll be our new starting point, right? Our new threshold. And then we would get into the bigger, potentially more controversial things that we'll have to discuss and decide. Things like, term limitation or mayor's terms and those kind of things. And
Yeah,
then-
but what I'm looking at here though, with like the sections that you've removed, aren't those considered the low-hanging fruit, like things that we no longer need?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, we want to get those out of the
Oh,
way.
yeah. So
And
I would
so that
just-
we can then get this stuff out of the way so that we can tackle those bigger, more weighty issues.
Yeah, so what I was saying is now we look at a copy where instead of having it red and crossed out, it's gone. If it's red and crossed out, it's gone. Now we're looking at a copy when we make the new revisions and moving forward kind of thing. So we're not always
A
looking
clean,
at,
clean copy with, once we have version 2 exactly where we want it, then we could create a clean copy. We could
Yeah.
change, we could make the numbering, renumber the paragraphs, that kind of thing. Sure, so it'd be like a brand new, partially completed charter subject to further changes.
does that answer your question, Tracy?
Yes, yeah, to an extent. We just want to approve what he has here in the red is what you're saying. We make the approval and then it's removed, or I guess I kind of thought that what he has crossed out that we've already accepted as being removed.
Well, we did have a couple of questions. And if we can make a motion right now that we accept all the changes and we're moving forward, if somebody wants to make that motion, they can. Are we ready to do that?
I will, based on, I guess, follow up on hers. If that gets seconded and approved, that means everything in red that he has given to us today falls off. The next copy, I'll call it a clean copy, then we start working on the high-hanging fruits.
Yes.
And the rest of the cleanup and changes. There might still be like verbiage here and there that we want to question and change, but we're not looking at it with all of the crossed off areas. So
Yeah,
that
right.
it's
Red
a
will
little bit
disappear.
easier, yeah.
Right, yes, and like you said, the numbers will move up, paragraphs will get shorter, yes.
It'll make it easier to read. You'll be able to focus on the things at hand rather than stuff you've already.
Right, gender
you've
terms
already
will
spent
disappear.
several
Right.
meetings looking at.
Yeah, I mean, my take on it is, he is not making changes that we haven't already discussed and instructed.
Right.
So I am comfortable making a motion to please approve the removed or crossed out red areas and remove them from our next document.
And I'll second it.
Well,
If you guys are
question.
comfortable.
So, in here where we're talking about the mayor and it's currently at 2 years.
Right.
So that's what we're voting on, is we're fine with that.
No,
No, he's not proposing to
Thank you.
change.
Okay.
Right.
nothing's
Thank you.
fine.
Just-
We're just going from, we've got the low hanging fruit, the garbage out of the way. Now, when we look at this, we won't look at all the red and crossed out. And then we can go on and,
The high-hanging fruit that I jumped
Get the big
into
rocks.
is not being talked about.
Like section 1315, it's completely crossed out. We're removing it completely.
Which one is?
So it's nothing that we're going to discuss further. You know, I'm just using that as an example. It's section 1315.
Yes.
It's something we've discussed, we no longer need. We instructed him to remove it. He agreed that it could be removed. So now, next time I look at this document, it's gone. I don't have to look at it.
Right.
You know, it just makes it a little bit easier to read and work with. So that's a complete section. And then when you are reading a paragraph where half of it is read and marked out and there's changes next to it, it's just easier now to read those. And we always have this version to go back to.
Right, you'll keep these versions, you'll keep a record of it so that if anybody does need to see how we got to where we are and where we were before, they have easy access to
Yeah.
that. And these provisions won't just disappear forever.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, I just was
and
wondering.
also the blue, that's gonna be incorporated as well.
That's my understanding
so.
of the motion,
That's the point.
is that
That's what I'm
the red and the blue changes will all be basically incorporated and adopted as a clean version to come back to.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this entire final copy is gonna get like a, you know, fine tooth comb read over,
Right,
so.
certainly.
Right.
Yeah, the blue stuff is just adjustments with verbiage, gender, things like that.
So the motion that I'm going to,
She's already made it.
I'm doing the secretary thing here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thought you were doing a number thing.
He's gonna amend.
Is to accept the changes to date that have been presented that are in red and blue.
Correct.
I second.
Make the final adjustment on our next copy.
Well,
so
there
that
is a
now-
motion and support already. I just want to make sure that the motion.
So
is
next time
whatever-
we look at it, we're looking at a copy that's all black and white again, and we start making changes again, you know, and then.
So when they look at the minutes, they'll see that here, this version number 2 that you
Yeah.
had was approved. You took all those out. Now we have version 3, or whatever you want to call
We
it.
have a clean slate, per se,
Version
again.
3, I can put a label on it saying, in version 3, clean copy incorporating changes from versions 1 and 2.
There you go.
Again, so just anybody looking at it can follow along easily, hopefully.
That was the question I had, because the first one you sent over actually has Charter Revision version 1, which is good.
Right.
The second one didn't have a heading.
Yours taken care of, sir?
Charter revision.
I'm sorry, I'm
version
sorry,
2.
I did.
Oh,
I
okay.
was,
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, if you do that, so we're, in essence, the vote is on accepting the changes in version 2.
Yeah, I guess that's an easier way to put
Right,
it.
no, I just, I want to make sure, because that's clear, we have 1 and we have 2.
Okay, in version
In
2.
version, if you just add that to his, hers and his,
You made the motion.
he jumped.
She made the motion, you made support. That's what I had.
I have a
Well,
lot
I'll
of
give it to
support
you.
today.
I don't care who gets it.
Yep.
Dwyer, do you want Dwyer? It's okay. He did support, but I thought you...
I did.
Okay, well, we're good.
You with this
Yeah, we have a
close
motion to
enough.
support.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
There you go.
Good.
Okay.
I threatened these guys enough, they're on my side.
Okay, and then the intention, just before we move on with the rest of the agenda, is the commission meeting later this month?
27.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that was still going on or not. So I will have that for you in time for the next meeting.
I'm going to get to you no later than Friday, and I'll copy the chairperson, whatever I think if there were some spelling errors or the inclusion of his and her, where there shouldn't have
Yeah.
been, those kind of things.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it, yeah.
Absolutely.
If anybody sees any that we missed.
That way you have plenty of time to review.
Yeah, I've gone through this, but I found that even from writing legal briefs and so on, I'm so familiar with it, I see what I want to see, and then when I look at it again 2 weeks later, but boom, it's like, oh my God, where'd that typo come from? So it would be helpful, the extra set of eyes, the proofreading will certainly be appreciated by me.
Others, and if we can have that by the 21st?
Which is
Yeah.
next Thursday, is it?
Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah, I can do that.
Okay. So agendas in packets go out on Thursdays.
Friday is closed here and Monday's closed here.
Right, so if we want this version before the meeting, then we can have it in the packet.
Right.
That should not be a problem because as has been pointed out, we're basically preparing a version for you reflecting the changes that have already been made. So there's really not a lot of heavy lifting involved with that. It's fairly simple to do.
Okay.
Subject to just a couple other cleanup items we identified here tonight, and then some of you may throw my way, but those would be really simple to correct.
Okay. Anybody else have anything before we move on? Okay, so we're on current business 7B, committee reports on community group meeting information.
So far I have been just speaking with a couple people that are, down our block, asking them what would be, how they feel about timing wise for us to start, at least talking with them, what would be a better time for them to remember what we're doing. I am speaking with some people. They did give me a timestamp. For some of them, they felt like April would be a better spot, I think, for them to get information about what's happening or what changes that we made. Because I have said that we are looking to send out our charter at least by April. We're looking to at least have this on a ballot. What would be a good time for you guys? Do you guys think that you'll remember something that we talked to you about in February, March, and April? Or would it be better for April, May, and June, where we have farmers markets, where we have community outreach? What would that be the best spot? I am coming to the more conclusion that maybe doing it during that April, May, and June time. But I also want to see if I can get at least like a flyer set up that I did. I think I spoke with you guys previous about like a brochure to drop off, or even see what it would take to get a mass mailing, and see if they could send out at least like a sheet of things that we are doing, so it at least goes to people's homes so they know that we'll be coming soon. I am still working that up. I am going to be speaking with Brad about it, but I did want to give you guys at least an idea where I was thinking, where my mind was going, because I didn't want to start too late, but I didn't want to start too early. How do you feel about that?
What's the deadline on submission to, I'm just trying to figure out in my mind, what's the best thing? Do you go to the people before you submit to the governor's office? Because once you submit to the governor's office, it's locked.
The main thing we wanted to do, well, there's really two reasons to go with the people, and I think we spoke about it at some length last meeting. I think Mr. O'Neill in particular had some thought-provoking comments about that. First, you go to them to get feedback on, what they want to see. And you've more or less gone through that process, and we're going to talk to everybody in the city, but you've reached out, you've talked to a lot of people. And then the second round would be when, okay, now we're trying to educate people. Here's what we've done. Here's what you're going to be asked to vote on. Here's what we've done. My thought is that would be much later in the process, probably around the time or after we go to the governor's office, really for a couple of reasons. Because again, we're not seeking their input at that time anymore. We're trying to explain to them what we've done and why it's a good product. And the other reason is just, the same reason that people don't put political signs out too early. It's because we all have, we have short-term memories, right? If you go to people too early, you go to them in June for something that's going to be voted on in November. It's like, I remember talking to that Mr. Marucci, but boy, life of me, I can't remember what it is he told me. So you want to be fairly close in time. And
So
take
like
advantage
August,
of it.
September?
Just like any campaign.
Yeah, August,
Where-
September,
where
October.
it really picks up steam when you get in the
Yeah.
last few months. That would be my thought on it.
If that's the case, because that's been my biggest thought process behind it, is just making sure that people remember. I know they're going to know that it's going to be there. It's going to pop up on the ballot. They have to see it if they're going to vote for it. So I just didn't know what would be the best space. So, I feel like you guys know what your memory would be like. I don't remember anything from February. I'm not really good at remembering anything from June or July. If I have to remember it in the last quarter of the year.
It
She
may be a
says in our
multi-step-
25th meeting.
Yeah, it may be a multi-step process, because when I'm talking about, more toward the end, I think that's really when you're making the big push to basically sell, to educate the general population. But that doesn't mean that that we shouldn't reach out beforehand to key stakeholders, key organizations, civic organizations, and so on, and kind of start building that buy-in process that will help us later on sell it to the general population. But I mean, we all know, you folks are perfect examples. I mean, there are people who are far more involved in the community than others. Others just kind of live here and they pay their taxes and they vote come election day, but there's other people who are involved throughout the year. And I think those are the people you start reaching out to earlier in the process, but like I said, you make your big your big pitch later on.
No, I completely understand that. I just wanted to know what would be the best part. I just felt like it would be too early to go to a place of Knights of Columbus first to start, and that didn't seem like the best first place to go to. One of the few people, the first 5 or 10 people I'm talking to start. And I didn't know if that would be how you guys would feel about it. I'm just trying to piece it all together and figure out, should we give them information first, and then should we talk to them, and then should we go in and give them more information after that?
I think giving them information, like you said, like a flyer or some kind of, and putting information out there and starting actual face-to-face, more like late spring. I think that sounds good. I think when people can get out, honestly, I just think the time of year, people are more apt to be social. I know in the wintertime, everyone's like, it's 5 o'clock, it's dark, you're coughing, let's go, let's
Hibernation.
I mean, I think another important thing is, we're already going to have our copy ready to go. We're already going to have come up with our final proposal, but we've given them, 25 meetings worth of the opportunity to come and voice their opinions and talk about what they want us to do here. So at that point in time, it's going to be about, now we're going to educate you on what we have decided to do. I mean, does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. It's is it going to be more informational, or is this a Q&A kind of situation, or am I just telling you? Am I just going to tell you what I have? This is what we did. This is what we've got so far. This is how far we've gotten. This is what we're submitting.
Yeah, I think saying, this is what our proposal is, this is what we've finalized on and is going. Please let me know if you'd like clarification on this, or if you have any questions about this.
Okay.
You can only ask for input for so long, and if you're not getting it, then, then you move on. Then you just educate on what's there. So that works for me personally. I thank you for putting the footwork in, because,
And I think there's things, and we've talked about this before too, that there's a number of ways to do this, not only with those direct outreaches to people at community events and going to them and so on, but through planned media releases, using social media, using websites, that sort of thing. You can present information out there to let the general population, let the residents know we're here, remember us, we're here, we're working, we're doing these things. And again, just to not necessarily put the spotlight on us, but at least so that we're not totally forgotten about, and then come next August, all of a sudden people are like, Charter Commission, who are you again? What are you doing?
Yeah, and as far-
we don't want to surprise people.
As far as what you're looking to send out, I mean, I think we had discussed it before, that we wanted to, in the end, pull out our big rocks, pull out the things that are going to matter to people.
Yep.
They don't care that we changed a sentence in section 7.13. You know what I mean? So, pull out the things that they are going to have questions about, or wait, what does this mean for our city, or how does this change affect us, kind of thing. So that would give us the opportunity to just pull out what they're going to question, not say, here's this whole document, if we'll talk about the whole thing. We want them to realize, yeah, if you want to read it and ask a question separately, you're welcome to, but these are the issues that we would like to address with you, or, answer your questions about, and,
To simplify,
Let's make it
the two
happen.
biggest questions people are going to have is, what are you changing and why? I mean, those are the two biggest questions people are going to have.
Yeah.
And we'll know going through it what people are going to care about, getting information on and what they're not. So like when we read through our final copy, when it's all said and done, we just have to say, this is going to matter to people, this is going to matter to people. Whether it affects them in any way, but if it's going to matter to that, if it could affect big events in the city, then, they're going to want to know about it. Mayoral terms, for instance, city council terms, things like that. People are concerned about that. At the end of the day, they don't necessarily have a say as far, they don't necessarily care how, maybe you like our current mayor, or you don't like our current mayor. Maybe you vote them in, people are either going to say, okay, I voted you in for this long, or they're going to say, okay, I didn't like this person, how long do I have to wait? So things in the charter that affect them that way. I hope I'm making sense.
You make great sense.
Sometimes I ramble and I'm like, those are the kind of things that they're going to want to know about.
No, I
and
understand.
how did we affect their life with that?
Because my biggest concern was me giving too much when it didn't need to be enough, and I didn't want to spend too much time in the same places giving the exact same information when I know it's not going to change. And I didn't want to start too early because we've got other things going on. Like you said, the season is coming up. Kids are still in school. People haven't gotten out. There's no carnival that's coming around. We're still not getting the same amount of people who would be considered people who vote, in my opinion, who come and take part in community activities.
Yeah.
So those are the people that I was primarily concerned about. But if you guys are okay with the flyer, I'd be more than happy to bring the flyer that I made next time.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
I will say I'd bring the flyer next time and give you guys an idea of what I have. And then if you
absolutely.
guys are open to me reaching out and doing the social media thing, if I can't start our own charter commission page on Facebook or something like that, I'll just do it from my Facebook and not do something that I put into the community page, because I feel like it was a really good response when Brad was doing it when we first started too. So that's another way that we can reach out, that we're still monitoring our own things and we can get a good feel. So at least we'll have multiple people who can see how other people are feeling about what we're doing.
Might give you an idea too, how many people are interested, how many,
good climate.
what's the word, how many clicks you're getting or whatever. Just kind of show how successful we're being with our outreach programs, or not, as the case may be. What can we do better or differently?
Yeah. So that was my update, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll go to city reports on options for setting up public working document. We talked about this before. We were wondering whether it's going to be, are they going to put it on the website, these documents, so that they are out there available for the public. And I think we decided, we asked them if it would be possible for them to put it on the website, and
I think August said it was possible.
To put them in documents with our reports, right?
PDF files.
You know, where you
Believe
can
you
go in
said
and you
that.
find the files of our minutes and
Yeah.
things like that. I think we can have a folder in there, he said, but I don't know if we looked into it any further without August here, you know.
Yeah,
we
so
might have more.
we'll,
Maybe we need to move that to next week's, our next meetings.
I don't think he's gonna be in until January, right? August? Is he gonna be here next meeting?
I don't recall him saying if he was or
That
wasn't.
email said he wasn't gonna
Did it?
be gone for the holidays.
Well, we can always email him in the meantime for that information.
Our intent is obviously to post version 1 and 2, 3, 4, and whatever else, correct?
We want to have a copy of everything.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
To me, that sounds like we already made that decision, we just wanted to
Yeah.
happen. That's what it seems like to
We just have
me.
to figure out what is the process to get them to upload it to the website.
Sure.
And maybe,
I don't
if
think-
August isn't here, we could probably ask Nick.
Nick or somebody, I don't think the world ceases with August not here. It shouldn't.
Yeah, they've been helpful too, so we can,
Well, I agree, because by next meeting, we're going to have 3 versions.
Yeah.
I hate to both of them pop up with 3. It's like,
Because, you know, people need something to do on New Year's, yeah.
right. The other thing, I noticed that when I was on the website today, whoever uploaded the information,
Right?
it said, it was worded different. Notice it says like City Charter Commission and the date, and this one said like CC. It normally says, I think, City Charter Commission, November 8th, 2022. And I think whoever uploaded it now, if I remember correctly, said like CC 12/12/22. And yes, I know what that means, I think most people, but it's different than all the other entries.
So like a unified.
It should be unified, and like I said, they use the shorthand version, and,
that, I think what happens is that's how the system does it, and then they go back and I think they change it for us.
and put it in.
So,
Oh, you're right, I feel like we discussed that before.
yeah, so it may just be somebody else did it,
And that's what I believe happened,
and
someone
then
else did
maybe
it.
they were intending to go back to fix it,
Yeah.
maybe they got distracted. But we can,
It sounds minor, but it's like, everything's perfect, in the very top one, I'm like, what document is that? And then I looked at it, it's like, oh, CC is Charter Commission, it's the, you know, the numeric way of stating the day and the date.
okay, yeah, they've been really good about
I agree.
fixing something that we
Yep.
see as out of the norm.
But yeah, if they can get this posted right away, instead of waiting for 3 versions to hit on the same day.
Okay, well, I can contact them tomorrow. Okay, commissioner comments?
I think we've had a lot of comments today.
Very chatty.
No, I think it was a beneficial meeting, and whether we
Yeah.
realize it or not, by wiping the slate clean on our current and starting with a fresh one, like, we actually just made, like, that's a significant decision.
Yeah.
That was a lot of headway.
Joe, you started it up. This sounds great because it made me want to think about like what other stuff kind of partially contradicts and stuff that's
I
farther.
know, I was like, whoa. But, I mean, like, it's 52 pages right now, I'm curious to see what happens to our next one. We really, like, made a big dent in it without really realizing it. I'm proud of us.
Yep.
Only 25.
Even you, Wayne.
Right.
Okay.
Slacker.
So
I got one, huh?
we are going to be reviewing the version
I'm not expressing
3
an opinion yet.
next meeting, and we'll be discussing changes, well, additional changes. Great. Next meeting, we'll be getting version 3 of the new charter, and we'll be discussing additional changes with the possibility of other commissioners possibly sending revisions. Was that what you wanted? Unless that's why you got the.
What I said was, mine weren't so much revisions as maybe some corrections and
I'm
clarifications.
hoping if I get those
You get them no later than Friday.
timely, then I can just,
Yep.
if no one has any objection, and I can point them out to you, but, you know, if there are some more he's or she's or
That's
whatever,
what, yeah.
I'll just add those to the mix here. When I give you your version 3, I'll just include those. And then, of course, as we're going along in coming months, there's bound to be other things, or commas that should be periods, or, you know, all that kind of grammar stuff will inevitably pop up. It just always does. Or just, as we said, we're going through and just discover, hey, there might be a better way of phrasing that particular section to make it clearer or stronger or whatever.
Like a new word besides.
And a better word.
Defalcation?
Defalcation, which I
Almost sounds like
trouble
something
even
that you want your parents to do.
Not a word I commonly use in my daily
Okay,
parlance.
so if anybody is gonna be, sending John anything, we can commit to do that before Friday.
Absolutely, and I'll send you, you'll be CC'd on what I send.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, that'll work. Okay. Public comment for items not on the agenda? And we kind of just discussed on next agenda items. Next meeting is December 27th. And that'll be our 26th meeting.
That's crazy. Time flies when you're having fun.
Mhm.
It's 7:42, so if anybody would like to motion.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Second.
Ooh.
Don't
Third.
jump or anything,
Third.
no.
Favor?
Aye.
Object.
Thank you for joining us, everybody.
Thank you, John, for being
You
here.
can't object, but